Welcome, everybody, to this call. This call is a live coaching call. We're really glad that you're here. We know that your time is valuable, and we know that you're here because you want information. We want to give you information. In fact, we want to help you completely change and improve your metabolic health by focusing on something called insulin resistance. And in this call, I want to show you exactly how to do that, how to do it naturally, without counting calories, without going on an elimination diet, without doing an extreme exercise program. Okay. We want to show you a really simple way to just lean into the science. And once you understand the science and you know what's going on with your body, you will have the knowledge, the power to make some really, really significant changes in your metabolic health. So we've got one of the top experts in the world tonight on metabolic health that's going to be helping us and presenting tonight. We've got a lot of information and we're ready to get started. So we're going to jump right into it. To begin, I think I just maybe take a moment and introduce myself. My name's Trent, and I'm going to be hosting this call tonight. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm so passionate about metabolic health. Um, this is a picture of me and my dad. And 7 years ago, almost to the day, my dad died from stage 4 colon cancer. Now, when my dad got sick, and they diagnosed him with colon cancer, the cancer had already spread all over his body. It was in his lungs, it was in his liver, it was in all of his lymph nodes, it was everywhere. And this is something that had been going on for some time. My dad had something called insulin resistance. Now, he didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that was. Most people don't know what that is. But insulin resistance is actually a really big problem. And on my dad, the insulin resistance, the signs of it were everywhere. We just didn't understand what these things were and how they were interconnected. So my dad struggled with obesity. My dad struggled with fatty liver. My dad was pre-diabetic. He had high blood pressure. He had high cholesterol. My dad had skin problems. He had a serious skin problem called psoriasis that was all over his body. And all of these things actually point back to something called insulin resistance. All right. Now, when my dad got sick, I went down the rabbit hole and tried to learn everything I could to potentially save my dying father. And what I learned was truly remarkable. It was remarkable because it was so simple. And it was something that I was never taught in school. And I realized that if I had been able to teach my dad about it, he would still be alive today. And so I got really passionate about teaching other people because maybe your dad or your mom, or maybe you yourself or somebody that you love or care about has insulin resistance or has some of these symptoms and doesn't realize that it can be fixed so easy just by focusing on the insulin resistance. Now, some of you may have, and Lindsay will talk a lot more about this. Some of you may have some of the signs and some of the symptoms. Maybe that is why you're here tonight, is because you're concerned about yourself or a loved one. Let's talk about some really basic signs, and I'll do this briefly because Lindsay always does it a lot better than I do. Maybe you have skin tags around your neck or on your face. Maybe they're in your armpits. Maybe you've got darker patches of skin. Maybe you've got some belly fat. Now, this happens on skinny people and on bigger people. They can have a protruding belly, a little belly or a big belly, but it's a protruding belly. All right. Now, that protruding belly is characterized by something called visceral fat. And visceral fat, see if I can get a better pen here. Visceral fat is fat that surrounds our organs. Organs like the liver. And we're going to talk today a lot about the liver and fatty liver and what that does and how it contributes. But what you'll see on the outside is this protruding belly. All right. And a protruding belly, this visceral fat, is the number one contributor, number one risk factor for insulin resistance. Maybe you don't have a protruding belly. Maybe you've got migraine headaches. Maybe you've got cravings, constant hunger, and inability to lose weight. maybe you have high cholesterol. If you're a girl, maybe you've got PCOS. If you're a guy, maybe you struggle with erectile dysfunction. Maybe you've got skin problems, blood pressure problems. Maybe you've got anxiety, depression, mental health problems. All of these things point back to the same bad guy. And this is the bad guy that we're going to be talking about today. We want you, by the end of this call, to be an expert on insulin resistance. Even if you've never heard of it before, by the end of this call, you're going to know more about insulin resistance than 99.9% of the world, okay? And knowledge is so powerful because when you learn what we're about to show you, you will find that fixing insulin resistance, addressing insulin resistance is actually really, really simple. Okay, so on tonight's call, I want to kind of give you a format for tonight's call. I'm going to be turning over the microphone very shortly to one of the top experts in the world on insulin resistance. She's going to be talking specifically tonight about insulin resistance and fatty liver. After she presents and explains the science behind why this is happening and what we can do about it, I'm going to do a deep dive into this protocol. This is a protocol that I have been following that has completely changed my life. I have hundreds of thousands of followers on social media that have been following me, and many of them have been following this protocol. And every week I get messages from strangers saying, Trent, I've been following the protocol. It's changed everything for me. My blood works better. My doctor is thrilled. My doctor cannot believe what is happening. This is working fantastically. I didn't know it could be so simple. We want you to experience that. And if a loved one, somebody that you care about, is struggling with their metabolic health and you invite them to these calls, they're going to thank you later. This can save a life and this can make life better for everyone. And we're going to lean into the science and make sure that you understand it. So to get started tonight, and by the way, I will be asking for some audience participation, and let's start with some of that right now. I'm going to shoot out a little poll to the audience. This will pop up on your phone or your device, and this will kind of help me get a feel for where you're at. Many of you are here for the very first time. Many of you have maybe been coming to these calls. Maybe you've been on your journey for a year now. And I wanted to know those things. And so I'm going to just launch a little poll. And if you could answer the questions on this poll that I've sent out here, that would be super duper helpful for me. Mahubo says, this protocol has taught me so much about insulin resistance. Oh, thank you, Mahubo. Thanks for being here. Mahubo is amazing. Mahubo actually shared her story since starting the protocol. She looks like a new person. I mean, she looks literally like 20 years younger, if you ask me, and appreciate you contributing here. Okay, is this poll is being filled out by you? It looks like so far, about 60% of you have more than 20 pounds you'd like to lose, and about 40% have less than 20 pounds. Whether you have more than 20 pounds or less than 20 pounds, we're going to help you get rid of that excess body fat. Many of you are noting that there's skin tags, a protruding belly or belly fat, brain fog, frequent urination, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, anxiety, depression, being tired after meals. If you're struggling with any of these symptoms, we're going to help you with this tonight. We're going to help address many of these things. Have you started the protocol yet? Okay, so it looks like about 3 out of 4 people on the audience, and there's 250 people here, have started. Some of you maybe have been on it for a day or a week or a month, and about a quarter of the people on this call have not started yet. So if you're feeling really lost, if you're brand new here and you're like, okay, what is this protocol that they're talking about? How does it work? What is all this? Don't worry, we're going to explain that in just a little bit. I want to assure you, we're not here to sell coaching or books or a boot camp or something like that. We just want to lean into the science and show you what is possible. Okay. Without further ado, I want to bring in one of the top experts in the world on insulin resistance. No, I am not exaggerating. Not exaggerating in the slightest. Lindsay Venn is one of the founding members for the Metabolic Society for Healthcare Practitioners. Lindsay Venn is the heart and soul of Insulin IQ and works with Dr. Ben Bikman, who is probably, well, definitely one of the top, if not the top expert in the world on insulin resistance. Lindsay spends her days looking at lab work for patients and helping them fix their lab work, helping them get healthy, helping them reverse and address their metabolic health problems. So Lindsay, thanks so much for being on the call. You have been so so generous with your time to come here and teach. For people that want to connect with Lindsay, or if you need, maybe you don't know where you're at with your blood work, maybe you're scared to even get your blood work done because you're worried about what that might mean and what kind of medications you're going to be put on. There is nobody I'd rather have looking at my blood work than Lindsay Venn. So Lindsay, thanks for being with us tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the intro. I'm going to share my screen. Like Trent said, today we are going to be talking primarily about fatty liver and insulin resistance, because you really can't have one without the other, unfortunately. And a lot of people don't recognize this, and their doctors don't recognize this. And this is where my job comes in, is to educate everyone so that you can make sure your doctor knows what he should be looking for and doing when it comes to your general health, particularly with fatty liver. So I thought we would just start really simply. Well, what is fatty liver? A lot of people may not know. They hear this term and they're like, well, what does that actually mean? Well, it is this fat infiltration into the liver that is completely unnatural. We do have places that are designed in our body to store fat. It is not our liver. It is not our muscle. It is not our pancreas. It is not a variety of other organs. It is our adipose tissue. And the healthy way to do that is in our subcutaneous adipose tissue. The less healthy way to do that, like Trent mentioned, is in the visceral fat, which therefore also promotes fat storage in the liver. And so I did want to talk about this because I found this fascinating when I was doing this presentation the other day, because this guy right here, I gave this presentation a couple years ago, and this was up to date. Up to date is one of the biggest resources for medical providers out there. This was a couple of years ago. And this was yesterday when I was putting this together. Again, it's still up to date. Well, what am I pointing out? So let's talk about the types of fatty liver. There's alcoholic fatty liver disease, and to a lot of people, they know it as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And there's a lovely gentleman by the name of Ken Berry who has pointed out the fact that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease only tells us what it's not. It doesn't tell us what it is. What it is, he wants to rename it. And apparently we're getting there, because they have renamed it in up to date, either MAFLD, meaning metabolic associated fatty liver disease, or MASH, which is also metabolic associated steatohepatitis. Steatohepatitis is a very easy way. Steato means fat, hep means liver, itis means inflammation. So metabolically related fatty liver from our diet, from our lifestyle, from things like that. I don't expect anybody to read these or understand these, but there are different levels of fatty liver. And the farther down you go, whether it be a fibrosis stage or whether it be a grade stage, the worse off it is. The good news is the liver is really good at regenerating itself. And so unless you're in full-blown cirrhosis, you can fix this, and you can fix it fast. And I'm going to show you the data behind that. So how do you know if you have fatty liver or not? This is a really tough one for clinicians, and this is why your doctor has not brought it up. There are labs, and those of you who've watched this call before understand that these labs, particularly right here, are diagnostic labs for insulin resistance. We can catch it early. If you have insulin resistance, you probably have fatty liver. The longer you've had insulin resistance, the more likely it is you have fatty liver. Other measures would be your CRP, which we want to be less than 3. So if you're greater than 3, that's probably in there. AST, ALT, which is on a general chemistry, if those are elevated. To me, these, I see lots and lots and lots of insulin resistant patients. AST and ALT do not become elevated until you are severely down the road of fatty liver. So even if you think you might have it, or if you have severe insulin resistance, even if AST and ALT are not elevated, you still probably have it, because they don't elevate until it's pretty bad. And then GGT, gamma glutamyl transferase, is a more sensitive marker when it comes to liver function. So if you really want to know, ask your doctor for that one. Most doctors don't measure it, but it is something you can do. And again, get this fasting insulin. You can calculate that with the glucose to get your HOMA-IR, and everyone should have a triglyceride to HDL in their library of lab work. It's something that your basic cholesterol panels get done every year. The other ways to diagnose it, these are actually the best ways to diagnose fatty liver. The gold standard is a liver biopsy. Liver biopsy, though, unfortunately, is extremely invasive. It's a big fat needle that's going to go, puncture your liver and take a sample, and then you can grade it. That's how those grades that I mentioned previously occur, is with the liver biopsy. The other thing that is now, I've been I've been in the healthcare field for almost 40 years, is FibroScan. This has become more popular as of late. It is an ultrasound. It determines the density of your liver. The more dense it is, the more infiltrate or more fatty it is. And a FibroScan is a really easy, non-invasive way to determine how severe that thickening of the liver is. So you can certainly ask your doctor most of the time. And the reason I put gastroenterology up here is most of the time, it's the gastroenterologists who are ordering this, not the primary care docs. And so if you're concerned, either get a referral to gastroenterology or ask your doctor if they're comfortable ordering a FibroScan when it comes to that. And like Trent said, the biggest thing that happens with fatty liver that you will notice symptomatically is that protruding belly. And so that if you have that, that's the kind that you can't jiggle, you're going to want to go down this road. So what causes fatty liver? Let's talk about the common causes. There are other causes of liver disease that include things like hepatitis C or specific medications that can hurt the liver. That's not fatty liver. Fatty liver are primarily caused by these three things. Alcoholism, of course, will cause it. This one I'm not going to touch on a whole lot tonight because we're not AA, but it's something that you certainly want to cut back or eliminate alcohol use if you're worried about fatty liver. Insulin resistance, we're going to talk a lot about. And then fructose actually is something that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to fatty liver. And it is something that to me is pretty easy to improve. So we are going to actually touch on that right now. Fructose is in so many foods. High fructose corn syrup, fructose, there's a lot of different names for it. If you look at the data up there, we find that about 20% of our total calories is coming from fructose, and 10% of our, 20% of our daily carbohydrates and 10% of our total energy intake. This is a 2,100% increase in fructose intake over the last several decades. It is disgusting. It is unfortunate. It is all in an effort to save money, and it is destroying your health. As you can see in this image over here, it's not just in our soda pop. It is in all kinds of things that have any kind of potential sweetness to it. So really read your food labels, do what you can to eliminate this. So how does this work? Fructose, here's a study that we have on fructose. What it does is it increases this thing called de novo lipogenesis, particularly in what we call hepatocytes, which are liver cells. They found that people with fatty liver did have a 23% increase in this. They're plasma fatty acids. So fatty acids after we eat should be in our bloodstream to either be circulated and used for energy, or two, to be stored in our adipose tissue to be broken down for fuel later on. With fatty liver, we're not doing that. We're storing it all in our liver, which is a really big problem. Other problems with fructose: elevation in triglycerides, which again leads to insulin resistance, muscle lipotoxicity. We're going to talk about this in just a minute. We're going to have endothelial dysfunction. We're going to have increase in inflammation. Again, all worsening insulin resistance, which insulin resistance worsens fatty liver. So it's this terrible vicious cycle. When you compare fructose to glucose, there is this DNL over here stands for de novo lipogenesis. There's a significant increase in this fatty liver production when taking in fructose compared to glucose. And so you have to be very careful when it comes to looking at your labels. The other major sources of fructose, you guys, I didn't put a slide in here on this: fruit, especially genetically modified fruit, honey, agave. A lot of the things that are touted to be healthy are very high in fructose and will lead to more problems. So what do? Don't eat it. This is a hard no in the Lindsay Venn world. Do not take in any high fructose corn syrup to the best of your ability. Now, let's go on to more of my specialty, which is also one of the #1 causes of fatty liver out there. So insulin resistance, what is it? Let's talk about this. And a lot of you have seen these slides, but I want to make sure the new people who haven't seen my presentations understand. Every single cell in the body requires insulin to get glucose into the cell. This slide over here is exactly what that is. This is a cell. Your heart, your brain, your muscle, your fat, whatever it might be, this is what the cell membrane looks like. There's an insulin receptor that when insulin enters into that receptor right here, it opens the door for glucose to get in. This is in a normal person. When someone has insulin resistance, it's exactly what the word implies. This receptor becomes resistant to the effects of insulin, which does not allow glucose to get in. The body does not like to have high levels of glucose. So what does it do in response? It increases the amount of insulin in circulation until you can finally do what I call ramrod that glucose into the cell. Jason Fung talks about this. It's almost like these conductors on the train stations in Japan. They want to maximize the amount of space on those trains, so they shove people onto these trains. That is exactly what insulin is doing. It's shoving glucose, aka which turns into fat, into places where it shouldn't be because there's no more room on that train. This is where fatty liver comes from. Too much insulin, shoving too much fat and glucose into cells where it really does not belong. We know this is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. This study back in 2019 showed that only 12% of us don't have some level of insulin resistance. This one came out and said only 7% of us don't. So extremely good chance you or someone you know has significant, if not severe, insulin resistance going on. And this is where insulin IQ comes in. Like Trent had mentioned, fatty liver is one of the many things that we look at where insulin resistance is a primary cause of the disease. So again, like I said, I was going to mention the muscle the fat storage, ectopic fat. I know I get too technical sometimes. Ectopic fat means that it's being stored in a place it's not supposed to be. I love steak, just like a lot of people on these calls, but this is not what we want our muscle to look like. This is what beef muscle looks like because we did something to them. We fed them very frequently. We fed them refined carbohydrates and pellets. We fed them low protein chow so they would eat until they met their protein goal. So there's this thing called the protein leverage hypothesis. And what that means, and it's been proven to be true with things like cattle and geese, this foie gras down here, this is just fatty goose liver. If you feed these animals a low protein food, they will eat and eat and eat and eat until they meet their protein requirement. This leads to insulin resistance, which leads to marbling or fattening of things that should not be fattened. And I hope this doesn't offend anybody. So this is what these poor geese look like. This is what these poor cattle look like. Well, guess what we're doing to the American population? We're doing the same darn thing. Feeding frequently, feeding refined processed carbohydrates, feeding low protein options. So we want to change how we do that. Now let's talk again a little bit about this, and I want to show you some studies. So they did show here, and the main point of this study, I don't expect anybody to understand biochemistry here, is that glucose also leads to this de novo lipogenesis. This is a hepatocyte, meaning a liver cell that shows that when we increase triglyceride and fat in the liver, we're going to have this fatty liver. This one was really, really interesting because it was insulin resistant patients, even though they were lean and they had normal glucose levels. So just because you look good at your doctor's office and your blood sugar is normal doesn't mean you don't have insulin resistance, and it doesn't mean you don't have fatty liver. So you want to be aware of these things. This study really showed the effect of short-term carbohydrate overfeeding. 27% increase in liver fat, 27% increase in de novo lipogenesis again. So this is just that overfeeding thing that I mentioned earlier with the cattle and the geese. So what do you do about it? And this is really cool because they now have studies. This one is unfortunate because this was done in adolescence. That tells you how early this is happening. But they showed that a sugar-free diet compared to a normal standard American diet had a significant decrease in liver fat compared to the normal diet. So very easy to improve and to reverse. This one looked at fatty liver disease with calorie restriction versus a low-carb, high-fat diet. And what they found, this SOC diet is standard of care, which means standard American diet. They didn't have any real change in liver fat. Fasting alone, where they didn't change really their fat or their carbohydrate intake very much, actually showed just as much benefit as a low carb, high fat diet in these patients if you look at the actual results. The 5-2 diet, all that was 5 days of normal eating, 2 days of fasting. And so really fasting is very, very powerful with fatty liver. And the coolest thing, this study only demonstrated 12 weeks of the intervention. You can fix this and fix it fast. And so that's the best news about fatty liver that I want to drive home tonight. Changing your food, changing what you're doing is going to be very, very helpful. So what can you do? Anybody who's seen me talk at these calls before knows this slide. I repeat it a lot. Intermittent fasting, just like that showed before, very, very powerful. Cut back on those carbs, particularly the refined ones. Prioritize your protein, that protein leverage hypothesis. Keep your fats healthy and natural. Get rid of your snacks and avoid all those refined foods. What else can you do? You can add in the Feel Great system, which I think is just fantastic. I have so many patients that get great benefit from it. It's going to be able to improve your ability to fast, which we just saw is going to fix your fatty liver. There's actually antioxidant benefits specific to the liver in Unamate, which is another way to help that heal faster. We're going to sensitize the cells. We're going to lower your glucose. We're going to burn fat, including liver fat, and we're going to get some autophagy benefit. When it comes to the balance, there's a lot of benefits. Again, the glycemic control, food freedom for people who really, really struggle with lower carbohydrate things. This gives you a little bit more freedom, though we want you to keep it as low as you can. It's going to reduce or prevent that overfeeding problem that I mentioned. It's going to reduce the frequency of eating. It's going to help you heal your leaky gut. And you have also elimination benefits. When you detox the liver from different things, the way it gets out of the body is through stool evacuation. And so having elimination benefits is actually very important when fixing fatty liver. So if you want to get a hold of me, like Trent had said, my personal business, Venn Integrative Medicine or Insulin IQ, we're always happy to help people out. So hopefully this was helpful and educational. So
I hope you know that it was not only helpful and educational, like it was amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, for you to come on here as one of the top experts in the world on insulin resistance and take your time to teach and educate the science behind fatty liver and what to do about it, we're very grateful to you. And we're going to bring Lindsay back in just a little bit. We're going to have a live Q&A. So if you've got a question for Lindsay, you can put it right now. You can ask your question. If you're on the Zoom call here, there's 290 people on the Zoom call. You can add a question that you can ask Lindsay. We'll address the questions here in a little bit as we get to the end of the call. So thank you so much, Lindsay. So, one of the takeaways that you may have had from what Lindsay talked about was, okay, maybe you're like, I know I've got a carbohydrate problem. I know I've got a sweet tooth. I know that I eat too many carbs, too much sugar, but I've tried so many times to stop. And I do really good for a little while, and then I just fall off the wagon. And it's something that I've not been able to get control of. We want to help you get control of it. We want to help you blow your doctor away the next time you do your blood work. And there's a really simple protocol that you can follow that will make this so much easier. So for me, for years, I struggled with willpower. I do really good for a little while, and then I would fall off the wagon. And I'm one of those guys where, historically, if I'm not on a diet, I am gaining weight and gaining it quickly. And so I was always yo-yo dieting. I do really well for a while, fall off the wagon, put the weight back on. Then I'd start a new diet, do really well for a while, fall off the wagon, put the weight back on. And ultimately, hunger would win, cravings would win. Eventually, I would get tired and my willpower would kind of run out, and I would just get stuck in that cycle. For 2 years now, I have not been stuck in any cycle. I've been able to maintain a really, really healthy weight, and it feels really effortless. So real fast, let's talk about why we are all addicted to sugar and carbohydrates. And I'm going to make this brief, but I think this will be helpful and hopefully kind of illustrative to people who struggle with sweet tooth, who struggle with carbohydrates and are wondering why. Okay. So you've got a sugar problem, a carbohydrate problem. You don't know why. You wish you didn't have it, but your body just seems to really want these foods. It wants it late at night. It wants it in the middle of the day. Maybe you've got some sweets in your car or at your desk, or maybe even in your bedroom. Okay. What's going on here? In nature, sugar actually never, ever looks like this. This is not what sugar looks like in nature. Sugar is what is in apples. Sugar is in what, is what we find in foods that are naturally occurring, but it never looks like this. This is refined sugar, right? So in nature, sugar has a BFF. They are meant to go hand in hand with another. In fact, anytime sugar or any carbohydrate appears in nature, it always, always comes with this. Well, what is this? Sugar and this thing go together like peanut butter and jelly. They're like Simon and Garfunkel. They're like Jordan and Pippin. And you do not want to separate the two because one without the other, it just isn't the same. Okay. And this thing is fiber. When fiber in nature, fiber and sugar are meant to be together. Okay. Now, 50 years ago, a really, really smart scientist said, beware. Big food is stripping fiber out of everything. They are splitting up sugar and fiber, and they're only giving you the sugar. And he said, beware, I'm warning you, this is catastrophic to human health. Because if you separate the fiber, people will get out of hand with their sugar. And this will lead, he said, to obesity, to type 2 diabetes, to colon cancer, to asthma, to a bunch of metabolic health problems. And this is exactly where we are today, okay? In the grocery store, everything that comes in a box, a bag, everything in the middle of the store has been processed. What does processed mean? What does that really mean? When somebody says don't eat ultra processed foods, what does that mean? It means foods that have been stripped of their fiber. It is sugar without its BFF. It is sugar refined. It is pure sugar, okay? Nothing in nature works like that. But big food has made everything we eat like that. This is like our noodles, our rice, our grains, our breads, our crackers, anything. I mean, even foods that look observably healthy. You know, maybe you get a TV dinner that's a Stouffer's TV dinner. It's been stripped of its fiber. It's been stripped of it, okay? So, you know, you may be familiar with white rice, but what you may not know is that actually rice looks like this over here in nature. Around every grain of rice is the fiber, the bran, and food makers strip that off, and we, for the most part, only eat the white part. This is sugar. This is glucose. It is sugar, okay? When you do it to an apple, this is not just sugar. This is fructose, or fructose, depending on how you pronounce it. And this is a problem, as Lindsay said. So the missing fiber is very, very problematic. And what happens when you don't have fiber is you actually lose the satiety of the food. So when you're missing fiber, you feel hungry all the time. You can eat and eat and eat and never get full. All right. Lindsay talked about the protein theory. The same thing is true of fiber. You know, if you know, protein is really important and people are going to eat until they're full on protein, but fiber actually helps manage satiety. It slows down the digestion of foods. It keeps us feeling fuller for longer. And so if we're not getting protein, we're going to overeat. If we're not getting fiber, we're going to overeat. And the fiber does a number of other good things. All right. Now, I want to speed through this a little bit. When you bring the fiber back into your diet, you get control again of your blood sugar. You get control again of your cholesterol, your triglycerides. It helps improve your digestive health. It helps with weight management. Okay. So what are we doing on this protocol? What we're doing on this protocol, and I'll just kind of explain this here, is we're combining fiber with intermittent fasting. Now, you know what? I got to pause. I got to pause. I'm not going to share this just yet. We're going to get into this in just a minute. But there's 25% of the call has not been on the protocol. You've not started it yet. You have no idea. And maybe you're skeptical. Maybe you're like, okay, what is this all leading up to, right? I want you to bring your guard down. Don't worry. There is no gotcha here, okay? We're going to show you a protocol that works better than anything I've ever seen in my life. This is something that is in the physician's desk reference. If your doctor looks it up, your doctor will say, holy cow, how have I never heard of that before? Yeah, everyone needs to know about this, okay? It works beautifully. And if you that are on the call, there's 280 people on the call. If you that are on this live call would do me a favor, if you or somebody that you love has been on this protocol, whether you've been on it for a day or a week or a year, if you would just for a moment here, write 1 or 2 sentences in the chat of what it has done for you. I want everybody else to see what this does for people that follow this protocol. Now, I don't want you to exaggerate. Just straight up, what has it done for you as you followed this protocol? I'm going to read a few of these before I dive into this. Gary, this protocol has helped me to reshape my body, and it lowered my blood pressure to normal from very high. Also, it has helped me stop the food noise that has haunted me for years. I'm finding me again. I love it. Renee Peterson, I'm on since January, down 68 pounds, 49 inches off, blood pressure medications, depression, inflammation down, vertigo gone. Derek Henderson, my 83-year-old diabetic's father's glucose level has gone from a 280 down to 104. Now that it is below 140, my mother has taken him off his insulin at the suggestion of his endocrinologist. Oh, Derek, I'm so happy for you. Sandy Cooper, 13 months, lost 45 pounds, easiest loss ever. Type 2 diabetes reversed, off statin medication, energies through the roof, fabulous sleep. Diane Weaver, 22 months in, no more pain from inflammation, no more pain meds, no more acid reflux, lost 39 pounds. Husband is off his statins, has lost 40 pounds. Mother-in-law, 78, off blood pressure meds in 2 months after being on them for 20 years. She lost 35 pounds. John Patterson, reversed my prediabetes, lowered my cholesterol, lowered my triglycerides, eliminated neuropathy, lost 60 pounds. Christy Henderson, severe IBS has been resolved. Rosacea significantly improved. Shannon Davis, triglycerides down, HDL up. Jocelyn, I got off all my diabetes medications and lost weight. Jackie Taylor Block says, I just started and I feel more alert. John Cox, reverse diabetic retinopathy. My eyes had blood spots dried up in 90 days. Kathleen, emotional balance. I love it. These are great. Sarah Lowe says, food noise went from 100 down to 10. Ivy DeSanco says, after 2 weeks, on the 2 weeks taken, the inflammation in my foot with my arthritis, I am 44. Janice, no more migraines. Extra pounds almost gone. A1C went from a 6.5 to a 5.6. Okay, there are 35 more messages of people that have lost weight, gotten off their medications, reversed their type 2 diabetes. I wanted to do this, and thanks everybody. This is amazing. It's overwhelming. Kim O'Brien, I love Kim O'Brien. Kim O'Brien, reversed insulin resistance. I've lost 20 pounds and have more energy in my 40s than in my 30s. I want you all to read through that. If you're new, if you've never been on this before, this is what is in store for you. That's the proof, okay? So I wanted to show that first because when I show this, it's going to seem so simple. You'll be like, wait, there's no way. There's no way that something that simple could really make that big of a difference. Well, believe it. Okay, so let's show how it works, and then we'll get to the Q&A. This really is so simple, okay? We are going to do two things, okay? We're going to do a little bit of intermittent fasting, and we're going to use a couple of products that will make this so easy, okay? So if this is breakfast, and this is lunch, and this is dinner, what we are doing on this protocol is we're doing some intermittent fasting. What does that mean? It means that most of us are skipping breakfast each day. Okay, now, maybe your schedule's a night shift. You know, this can obviously be adjusted to fit any schedule. But when we skip breakfast, what we're doing is we're extending our overnight fast. We're not eating while we're asleep, and we wake up and we don't eat right away either. Now, what happens is the liver, oops, I just lost my screen share. Okay, so what happens is the liver starts to detox. It starts to dump out glycogen. Our fat cells also start to get used and burnt for fuel. So we're making the liver happy. We're making our fat cells happy. We're shrinking them. We're burning fat for fuel, okay, during that fast. And we're doing that because we're keeping our insulin levels down. When insulin is down, when we're fasting, our body is really efficient at doing this, okay? Now, we don't want to feel hungry or hangry and feel deprived in the morning. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use something that will make this super duper easy and block out all the food noise. Okay. By the way, when we skip breakfast, one nice thing is we save some money. We save the $5 or $10. You know, I can't get out of a fast food restaurant even for $5 anymore. It's like $11 now, right? But we're going to take the money we save on breakfast and we're going to use it to buy some things that are in the physician's desk reference that are clinically proven and work fantastically at helping solve this problem. So the Unimate, these two yellow ones, this is used to block out all the food noise, okay? There's lots of people that are taking medications and things to try and boost their GLP-1, which blocks out the food noise. You can do it naturally. And Unimate, I've got mine right here. When you sip it, it makes you forget about food. I mean, I can fast forever if I'm sipping this, and I'm not in a bad mood. I'm in a fantastic mood because this just makes it so easy, okay? Then before at least my largest meal each day, and usually I do it before every meal, I want to have the right fiber. Remember, we talked about bringing the fiber back and what would happen if you bring the fiber back? By bringing the fiber back, we eliminate insulin spikes and blood sugar spikes. We help lower triglycerides and cholesterol. All the things that we want to do happen just with some fasting and some fiber, okay? It really is that simple. Let me just repeat again, okay? You wake up, instead of having a big breakfast, you're just going to sip a Unimate. If you feel like you need another Unimate, you can have another Unimate to get you through all the way till lunch. Then, right before your largest meal each day, which is dinner for most people, you're going to have fiber. And in fact, what I do, and look at that, it's cost neutral. It completely pays for itself. We're going to take the $5 we saved. That's going to cover the cost of the protocol, right? So everybody can afford it. What I do is I actually do an extra packet of Balance before my lunch. So I have a Balance before lunch and a Balance before dinner because I am just obsessed with fiber, what it does to the gut, what it does to the microbiome, what it does to blood sugar, what it does to triglycerides, right? And so this is, it really is that simple. Now, I went on this protocol, my love handles disappeared, and I've been able to just maintain it like effortlessly. This is one of my buddies. He has been on this protocol and in like 6-7 months lost 70 pounds, completely changed his whole life. I have hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of followers on social media that have been like, Trent, this is Danny. He had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. He lost 40 pounds almost instantly. No more fatty liver. This is his wife, Crystal, who I love. Crystal's a nurse. She has now turned hundreds of people onto this protocol. She had Hashimoto's, which is a really serious thyroid condition. We've talked about it on other calls. Crystal lost over 50 pounds and got off 12 different medications. Hundreds of these stories. Claudia was a type 2 diabetic for 23 years. She doesn't have diabetes anymore after 2 decades of having diabetes. No more medications. She looks 20 years younger. Despy doesn't even look like the same person to me. I mean, this is her before with an A1C that was, I think, a 14.7. This is her now. Her A1C is now like a 4.9. No more type 2 diabetes. Looks like a completely new person. This works so stinking well. Now, it's not a miracle. It's not something where everybody loses 20 pounds in 20 days and it doesn't matter what you eat. You can just eat buffet style every day. And this is, no. What we're doing is we're controlling the food noise. We're controlling it with fasting and with fiber. And when we do that, when we control insulin levels, when we focus on insulin resistance, magic can happen. Okay, now we're going to bring people back for a short Q&A. Okay, now there's like so many good stories in the chat that I would love to read. We don't have time. I hope you had a chance to read some of these. We've got some questions, and I want to make sure that we get to these questions. That's the focus of the call now. And so we're going to bring Lindsay back, and we're going to answer some of these questions. First thing that I want to do is answer this question from Angelica Ferrer. She asks, if I don't want to lose weight and still I do not have breakfast, this is good, or do I have to eat if I don't want to lose weight? Lindsay, do you have a response to that question?
I was totally reading a question directed to me. Say that
Okay.
again, Trent. I'm
Let
sorry.
me read it again. So the question is essentially, Angelica is asking, hey, I don't want to lose weight. I'm at a healthy weight, but I want all the other benefits of this. Should I have 3 meals or should I skip breakfast? And if I skip breakfast, am I going to lose weight that I don't want to lose? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a trial and error thing completely. And so I do recommend fasting for most people, but it doesn't need to be every day in those that don't want to lose weight. So if you want to fast, intermittent fast with a 16-8 or an 18-6, 2 or 3 days a week, you'll get the fasting benefit, the human growth hormone increase, all of those kinds of things. If you notice you're losing weight with doing that, then cut out the fasting. It's not necessarily as important. Again, prioritizing protein and healthy fats is.
Awesome. Looks like you have answered this question from Jesse Benning. I'm just going to read it out loud and I'll just paraphrase it because it's a long question. Jesse was asking, hey, I do not want to lose weight. I want to gain muscle, so I need excessive calories. And, essentially you said, hey, great, eat lots of protein. The fasting will help your HGH go up, which will help you store that protein and use it effectively, right? And Jesse, just so you know, I know several bodybuilders. I know several people that are putting on muscle that use intermittent fasting as a great strategy to help them cut, lean up, and still bulk up.
Later in the conversation, he was worried about a 5.7 A1C. Healthy people, and I can't reiterate this enough, healthy people have red blood cells that live longer than unhealthy people or even normal people. And we very, very, very frequently see elevated A1C in a very healthy person because your red blood cell has more exposure to glucose because of time, not because of hyperglycemia. Don't ever check an A1C again and don't worry about it.
Okay. Lacey Johnson is asking, can you tell us if it is safe for a confirmed diabetic to take this protocol while on metformin with blood sugar levels over 400?
Ooh, those are really high blood sugar levels. Yes, it's completely safe. There is nothing about metformin or type 2 diabetes, if that is what that is, this will be helpful, not harmful.
Yeah. For anybody that's on medications, listen, if you just read the chat, I mean, we have probably 100 people here who said that this has helped them get off medications. Okay. We want to encourage you to always work with your doctor on that. I don't want to tell you to stop. I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor. And that should always be done with your doctor. Let's say that let's say that your blood sugars are high. Okay. And one of your goals is to bring down blood sugar. And so you start this protocol. And blood sugar on this protocol, they're going to come down naturally. Now, there's going to be some fluctuation from mornings. They're going to be, your blood sugar goes up often when you exercise. It can go up when you have allergies, right? But in general, on this protocol, blood sugar is going to come down. Now, if you're taking medications that are going to artificially push blood sugar down further, well, then it could get too low, and we don't want that to happen. So this is an opportunity, though, to work with your doctor and either reduce or eliminate your medications. And that's why you see probably 100 people in the chat that have gotten off and completely eliminated their medications. So if that could be done with your doctor, or you could reach out to a licensed professional like Lindsay, connect with her and get coaching from her on that if you've got a question about your medications. Okay. We've got a hand raised, and I love bringing people onto the call with questions. There's a couple questions, so if you've got your hand up, we're going to bring you on here in a moment. There are a couple questions we need to get to first, so let me make sure I bring these up. Of course, I scrolled a little bit and lost it here. Well, let's bring you on, LW Certified Health Coach. We're going to bring you on and add you to the call. Go ahead and ask your question.
You're muted.
Yep, we're going to invite you to unmute.
All right, so I have one of my friends who's seen her doctor recently, her mother, and her insulin levels have been high, and the doctor told her that now her kidneys may, start to be affected. How can the Feel Great system help with her kidneys?
This is an excellent, excellent question. I love it. There are studies
And my
out
name
there.
is Lynette.
Hi, Lynette.
Lynette.
There are studies out there, and Ben Bigman talks about this all the time, where they have taken people and animals with normal glucose levels and made them insulin resistant through giving insulin and things like that, but normal glucose levels. And they found that the insulin resistance in itself is more problematic to kidneys than hyperglycemia. So fixing the insulin resistance will help. And I have patients, I met with one today. She only has one kidney and her creatinine level went from 1.3 to 0.9 with just incorporating Feel Great. So great question. The insulin resistance is the culprit and this will help fix it.
Thank you, Lindsay. There's another question from Christine. And Christine, I want to see if you'll follow up on your question. So Christine Bullman says, I have tried intermittent fasting and I can't do it. Will I still get results? I was diagnosed with NACL. Christine, now maybe, Lindsay, are you familiar with NACL? I don't know what that means. So Christine, if you wouldn't mind just specifying, when you say I've tried intermittent fasting and I can't do it, maybe tell me what you mean by that. Is it just you feel exhausted, you're tired, you're hungry, you're hangry? Or do you get lightheaded? Do you get jittery? Do you start to shake? Tell us a little bit about what that means. Often when somebody struggles with intermittent fasting, what's happening is they're eating foods that are processed foods. They have, they're literally eating processed foods that cause a blood sugar spike. Okay. That blood sugar spike is followed by a blood sugar crash. And their blood sugar will get too low. You can get like jittery and shaky. And often it's because you don't have fiber in the diet. And so many people on the Feel Great system immediately have that go away and they're able to fast on this protocol. But we want to be careful. And so feel free to follow up if you have more info on that. Kelly, go ahead.
I think she said she gets extremely nauseous. My advice in that case is change your food first. Get the processed food out, get the carbs down, and then practice the fasting by shortening that window. If you're only fasting 12 hours, make it 11. Do that, then make it 10, and then make it so slowly decrease that eating window.
And I could add this, that there are so many people, like there's been breastfeeding mothers that have not done the fasting. They've done 3 meals, but they've done intermittent fasting between their meals. So they'll sip the Unimate between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They do 3 meals and they have had great success on the protocol. So yeah, it is possible. Kelly Detterman says, is this a protocol that you will end up on for the rest of your life? This protocol is something that has 3 different outcomes, okay? Many people go on this protocol, they reach their goals, they love the way they feel, they choose to stay on the protocol because, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's me, okay? I have no intention of stopping. I feel like I can eat what I want for the most part and get away with it. And, my blood work looks good, right? The second outcome, some people go on the protocol, they lose their undesired extra weight, they get their body where they want it to be, and they may try to maintain their results with a healthier diet and lifestyle. And if that's what you do, awesome. We're happy for you, right? That's a wonderful outcome. And then the third group would be a group of people that use it intermittently as needed. Maybe they don't use it all the time, but they use it, when they kind of fall off the wagon a little bit. And all 3 of those are great outcomes. We're interested in getting people off their medications. We're interested in helping people have freedom and be healthy. And so those are all great outcomes. Pia Orton says, a friend of mine has rheumatoid arthritis and is not allowed to have any caffeine. How does the Feel Great system work with someone who has rheumatoid arthritis?
I would encourage that person to go watch last week's video or reach out to whoever invited you to this call to share last week's, because it was specifically on pain and inflammation, which would probably be the best answer.
Sandra Terrell is saying, how does this compare to keto? So Sandra, keto is a diet. Keto is where you're cutting out carbohydrates pretty severely, and you're going to a high fat, high protein, low carbohydrate diet. Now, that's a great diet for many people who are insulin resistant. If you have fatty liver, lowering your carbohydrate intake is a very, very wise thing, okay? If you have type 2 diabetes, you're probably, you're eating too many carbohydrates, right? Especially refined processed ones in most cases. But this is not a specific, there's not an eating regimen associated with this protocol. I'm not counting my macros. I'm not tracking that. Although when I do, I can really fine tune and maximize my results. So that would be something that you may consider if, you've got fatty liver or type 2 diabetes. You may consider going to more of a ketogenic style diet. I just started the protocol today. What is a sort of average time frame until the food noise dies down? Lindsay, what do you see with your patients that start intermittent fasting? I know there's a transition period there that can be difficult for people. How long does that usually last, and how do you help them get through that?
So the longer you've been sick, the harder that tends to be. And so keep that in mind and give yourself a little grace when it comes to your ability to jump directly into it. The Unamate has been mind-blowingly helpful when it comes to helping people fast. I hear it every single day. For my patients who can't fast, adding Unamate is extremely helpful. Also, like I said, changing the food. If you're spiking glucose and insulin all during the time you eat, it's going to make fasting harder. So do what you can to reduce glucose and insulin spikes during your eating window.
Great. Love it. Is it recommended to take vitamins while on this protocol? Yeah, I take vitamins for different things. Christy Henderson says, hey, what happens when you stop? Are you going to regain weight like people do when they stop GLP injections? What are your thoughts? Any thoughts on that, Lindsay?
Ben just put out a video, I think I posted it today, that they have shown that some of these medications, because we're giving them super high doses, they are having a reduction in the food noise and regain of weight at about a 2-year mark. We have not seen that. Unicity has been around for a long time and people have had long-term success. The best news about this, and what I tell my patients and encourage my patients, is you can do this for life. This isn't a synthetic medication that you're putting into your body. It is something that you can do for life if you choose. And I'll be curious to see what happens with these medications over time. The jury's out on that still.
Thank you. And I'll just point out, maybe in conclusion to this, this protocol is something that works fantastically, but it's not magic. It took me 5 weeks. I mean, in the first 5 weeks, I felt really good. I was in a good mood. Like I was liking the way I was feeling, but I was discouraged because I hadn't lost any weight. The scale hadn't moved yet. I felt better, but the scale was saying, you're still stuck, Trent. And then over the next few weeks, it just got easy and the scale started to move in the right direction. And so, give it time, use it properly, be consistent, and it won't let you down. The manufacturer that makes the stuff, which I believe is going to change the world. This is so awesome and it works so well, but they give everybody a 90-day, no questions asked, money back guarantee. And so if you've not started the protocol, you can use it risk-free for 90 days. You can use every packet in the box. And if you're not fully satisfied, get a refund, right? You can find somebody, if somebody's invited you to this call, they can give you a discount link, which will give you lifetime discount pricing when you order it, and give you the guarantee, and you'll have access to coaching calls like this one where we will help you. I mean, look at that chat. I mean, you saw what happened in the chat. We want that for you. Every week we do these calls. And so if you or somebody that you love is struggling with their metabolic health, you can invite them to these calls and they will thank you later. Thank you, Lindsay, Venn. You're amazing. Thank you so much to all of you that contributed to the call and shared your stories. We love you. We'll see you next week. Have a great night. Thanks, Lindsay. Really appreciate it.